Hello, everybody. Hopefully, we're having a good evening. Let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. That is what I would love to know from you right now. Also, let me know where you're watching from. And yeah, I think that probably covers the basics. And if you heard that, that was my alarm just now, so ignore that. All right, again, it is, what is it, Wednesday? Yeah, something like that. It is Wednesday night, everybody. And we're going to be talking about this big storm system out moving on through the east. Looks like I got some people let me know they can hear me. Again, let me know where you're watching from and let me know what you're seeing out there where you are right now, especially if you're in one of those areas that is getting some of that more active weather currently. Again, seeing all sorts of fun stuff falling from the sky depending on where you're at, whether that's winter weather, or just some good old fashioned rain here in Charlotte. We are seeing kind of some mist right now as this front is swinging on through. So again, we'd love to hear from y'all. And we're gonna give it about 5 minutes or so before we actually get started, just so people can kind of filter in and all the notifications can get sent out to everybody. But while we're doing that, I'll read some of these early on comments. Hello, Bonnie. Great to see you. Longtime viewer, Bonnie. She's always the first one to comment, so love you, Bonnie. Thanks for joining us. CJ, also a longtime viewer. Thanks for joining, CJ, from the Midlands of South Carolina. Deborah watching from Pennsylvania. Thank you. Welcome. And let me know what you're seeing in Pennsylvania and what part of Pennsylvania, if you don't mind sharing. You don't need to give the exact town or anything, but if you want to let me know if you're in the mountains or maybe near Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, whatever part, would love to hear. Cooper watching. Hello, Cooper. Bill watching from Morganton. Awesome. Northwest Connecticut is where Jim is watching from. Ready for the rain? Yeah, it's unfortunately probably going to be rain there. Although in Northwest Connecticut, don't rule out maybe some snow mixing in at some point during the storm's kind of evolution and its life cycle here. And a little spoiler alert for you all: if you don't get snow out of this one, I'm watching another storm system right around Thanksgiving. That one could bring some wintry weather and maybe even some severe weather to some folks, depending on kind of where you're watching from. Definitely going to be an interesting couple of weeks ahead as we get on into the heart of winter here. Alrighty. All sorts of people tuning in. Thanks, y'all. I appreciate it. Lexington, North Carolina is rainy. It's been gloomy all day. Says Misty. Yeah, North Carolina. It's been pretty gloomy. But go ahead and thank the sky for being a little gloomy, because if we would have had some sun today, we very well could have seen some pretty feisty storms. Luckily, though, we were lacking that instability, and again, it had kind of those low-level clouds hanging around all day. Walter watching from Massachusetts, cloudy and 63. Yes, still on the warm side of the storm there in Massachusetts, so it has yet to cool down, still under those above average conditions. And it has been a warm fall for just about everyone in the East. But this storm's going to be a wake up call, and the pattern ahead is really going to be a wake up call, I think, for many folks. 15 miles northwest of Albany, New York. Yeah, could maybe see some snow up in that part of the state for sure. Just south of Indianapolis. Yeah, Indiana probably going to get some snow out of this. Pretty good little storm for you folks, for November standards at least. Not out of the world to see snow there in November, but definitely, a nice little change up from how warm it's been. Gaylord, Michigan, well below snowfall, maybe 2 inches tonight. I sure hope this winter makes up for last year. Yeah, y'all, last year was it was not great. It was one of the least exciting winters I can remember in my life. And granted, I'm only 20. I'll be 21, kind of halfway through this winter. But yeah, it's been quiet over the past year or two. And one of my favorite sayings for meteorology is "What goes up must come down." So it's never going to stay stagnant. We're going to see changes, and generally speaking, you can only go so many years in a row of below average snowfall before something gives, and that's something that maybe this winter will do. Definitely, the first half looks to be pretty active here, so definitely that's going to be something we're watching. Driving to Columbus Friday for the Ohio State game. Saturday, should I expect anything driving from Virginia Beach? Will go through West Virginia. Yeah, there's definitely going to be some snow there on the ground, maybe even still falling, and we'll break that down for that region. But yeah, safe travels and have fun with the game for sure. Ohio State, I want to say, is Ohio State playing Indiana this week? Maybe. If so, that'd be a big game. That might be next week, but it'll be an exciting college football game. Big college football fan, by the way. So if y'all ever want to talk college football, let me know. I'm always down. South Central PA, Cherokee Nation, Murphy, North Carolina. Awesome, Ron. Great to hear that you're joining for us or from there in that part of North Carolina. Definitely going to see some snow in the mountains of North Carolina, specifically the northern mountains up towards Boone, kind of Yancey County northbound there. Likely to see that snow. Did I see the tornado warning? Yes, I did. It was, kind of snuck up on us. We did, I mentioned in my video today, I said I think Virginia could see a couple strong storms. Well, even Pennsylvania saw some strong storms, a couple tornadoes potentially touched down there in and around the Pittsburgh area. So again, it's a dynamic storm, folks, for sure. Same storm that's bringing tornadoes is going to bring snow, if that tells you anything. Could Harrisburg, PA get some snow? Yeah, it's definitely possible. Definitely possible. Greetings, Gerald from Southern New Jersey. Hello, Dorothy. Thanks for tuning in. All right. Well, that's been about 5 minutes. I think that's long enough that we can go ahead and probably get to talking here about what's on the way. So what you're looking at right now is satellite imagery. And, this is our storm system, folks. And it's pretty easy to see where kind of the cold part versus the warm part is. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and stop the loop for a second, just so you can kind of see a little bit better what I'm talking about. So this is the current look on our long wave infrared. And what infrared does, if you're unaware, it basically shows temperatures in the clouds. So, the really bright colors that you're seeing kind of down here at the very bottom of your screen, those are very cold cloud tops indicating very tall clouds and probably thunderstorm activity and convection. What we're seeing over the kind of Great Lakes and portions of Pennsylvania right now are cooler cloud tops. And that's because these are kind of a little more shallow. They're not getting quite as high. Now, some of them are getting a little bit higher up here into Pennsylvania and Virginia, and that's where we're running a little bit of a severe weather risk right now, as we're seeing, again, these storms grow a little bit taller. But overall speaking, these are not very tall clouds, and you can see that boundary. Right here's your front. Everything on the back side of this is cold air, snow falling into portions of this area, and we'll take a look at that in a second. But everything in front here, from the mid-Atlantic well up into the Northeast, we're still pretty mild, humid, and muggy. We got temperatures in the 60s, even 50s further south, 70s further south rather. Again, that muggy air moving on through. But this is going to swing through. We're going to see that cold air, and overnight tonight, it's going to hit like a hammer for a lot of folks. Trust me, especially how warm this fall has been. This is going to be the first real cold shot for a lot of people. So taking a look at kind of all of our, actually, before we do that, we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's go ahead and move this first. This is what we're seeing out there right now. And I know it's kind of a mess to look at on your screen, but these are all of our reports. The blue obviously are snowflakes. The green is rain. So you'll notice we're getting that change over to snow for a lot of folks up here into the Midwest. You folks up here into Minnesota, through the Twin Cities, back into Wisconsin, even the Chicago metro seeing some snow this afternoon and this evening. And this is sticking for a lot of folks. So if you're in that area, in any of these areas seeing snow, let me know how hard and heavy it's coming down. And if you're willing to share that report, would love to hear it. But another thing I'll mention, and you can see this on our next map. This is our surface analysis map from the Storm Prediction Center. And this is something that I like to use pretty often. Let me move my head out of the way a little bit. You might be able to see a little bit better. This shows pressure values at the surface. And you'll notice we're beginning to see low pressure form here up and around Lake Huron and kind of Lake Erie into this region. So this is the center of our low pressure. And what's happening is we've got low pressure there, and the flow around it is like this. So we're getting kind of, basically warm advection out of the Atlantic and out of the South. That's wrapping on the north side, but what's wrapping around on the south side is this cool Canadian air. So funnily enough, what's going to happen tonight for a lot of folks is we're going to see snow down to the south of the low and then rain to the north of the low. It's kind of flipped from what we would normally see. And you get that with these kind of cut off upper level lows. And that's exactly what this is. This is not your classic mid-latitude cyclone with a well-defined warm front and cold front. And it doesn't follow the normal rules. This is very dependent on upper level support. And that's one of the things that makes it tough to forecast. As meteorologists and kind of scientists in general, we collect data from the surface across the whole country, but we only collect upper level data in specific places. So that can make it tough to kind of gauge exactly who's going to see the worst of this and where they're going to see the worst of it. So it's a challenge to forecast, folks. These setups are very dynamic. Little changes can have big kind of ramifications on the uncertainty of the forecast. But either way, again, you'll notice that first low pressure beginning to form here for a lot of folks. All right, so now we can go and maybe go back to our, let's see, where was it? Here we go. We'll go ahead and show this again. Now, these are the reports again that I was showing you just a moment ago. Again, all sorts of snow falling in the Midwest, rain through much of Michigan. And again, this kind of backs up what I said. Low pressure here. And granted, this kind of rain in Michigan is still on maybe the colder side of the low. It's not necessarily in the swarm advection I talked about, but it's still not quite back where our pocket of upper level cold air is. And often that can be delayed from the surface cold air. And that's exactly what you're seeing here. So we've got rain all into this region. We've got rain into the mid-Atlantic. Charlotte, I can tell you, it's very misty. It's very rainy today. But where we have that upper level cold air, that's where we're seeing snow. And that's where we will continue to see snow over the next couple of days. Now, this cold air will move around. Again, it'll pivot into the northeast a little bit. It'll overtake much of the mid-Atlantic region. And that's why we have snow chances from the mountains of North Carolina all the way up into Pennsylvania. And even the higher elevations of the northeast, where you need a little less upper level support just because you have elevation helping you out a little bit, is definitely something that we're going to see up into that region. All right, so watches, warnings, advisories. Again, we've got kind of a lot that's happening out here from the east all the way even out west. Again, I'll show you out west here in case anyone's watching out this way. Very active weather into this area as well. We've had this big bomb cyclone off the northwest coast of the United States. That brought some pretty tremendous satellite imagery over the past couple of days and has brought some winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings for a lot of people. Sorry, I was reading an email. Looks like one of my classes has gotten canceled tomorrow, so that's always nice. Not that that has anything to do with the weather, but going back to the east now, talking about these warnings, watches, and advisories, we'll start into the mountains here. Winter weather advisories from, again, all the way down south into the southern mountains of North Carolina, all the way north up into West Virginia, where we have winter storm warnings for the higher terrains of West Virginia and up here into even the southern mountains of the Alps here into Pennsylvania. Now, this kind of lighter blue color you're seeing up here towards Binghamton, Scranton, and kind of surrounding areas, this is a winter storm watch. So it's yet to be upgraded to a winter storm warning, but a winter storm watch is in effect for that area. And this is a place that has really upticked in potential snowfall for a lot of folks in this region. And I mentioned this a couple days ago. I said with these patterns, somebody's going to get more snow than it shows right now. And somebody's going to get less than it shows right now. That's kind of what happened here into Pennsylvania. It has uptrended some, and we'll talk about why. But even if you're not seeing the snow, folks, you're going to see, sorry, I just drew all over the map with a really large pen there. But even outside of there, you're going to see wind impacts. We've got wind advisories from the Midlands of South Carolina all the way up into the D.C. area, the Delmarva, even through Harrisburg, Philadelphia, Trenton, even down through the Jersey Shore. It's going to be windy as this front swings on through. And then it's even also going to be windy, obviously, where we're seeing the snow as well. Now, we're running special weather statements here, it looks like, for much of kind of Indiana and up through portions of Illinois. So we are going to see snow here, and we are even seeing winter weather advisories here into the kind of eastern section and eastern shores of Wisconsin here. We're going to see snow here. Again, probably 1 to 3 inches. Same story for the northern mitten of Michigan, where we could see some of that snow. And then back here into the northern plains, we actually have blizzard warnings here into effect into much of North Dakota, not necessarily for snow that's still to come, but for snow that has already fallen. A lot of it is already, stuck to the ground. The storm is moving away, but the winds are picking up, and it's kind of now blowing that snow around into this region. So, you don't have to necessarily be in a snowy scene, I guess, if you will, to get a blizzard warning. You can get it just after the fact if the wind kind of blows around that snow a little bit. So interesting stuff happening there for sure. All right, I'm going to stop it on radar here for a second and read some of these comments so y'all can take a look at radar and let me take a look at some of these comments. My day's going well. Thanks for asking. I appreciate that. Southwest Michigan here, 4 miles from Lake Michigan, guessing it will rain. So Southwest Michigan, that's again for myself, because I sometimes have to use the compass rose in my head. That's down here. I think you'll probably get a change over to snow. You're getting rain right now, but I do think in the coming days you'll get some snow showers out of this, and we'll talk about that definitely. So good question. Mild in the Ozarks. Yeah, it is definitely warm to the south of this storm system for sure. But again, next week that could change, so stay tuned. Will Connecticut get any snow from Eli? It's possible, depending on where in Connecticut you're at. Now, I'm not expecting a big storm out of this one, but flakes definitely could fly. Will southern Indiana actually get the 3 inches some forecasters have predicted? I would say that's on the upper end of potential. I'd say probably 1 to 3 inches is the range. So, 3 is on the higher side of that, maybe closer to 1 or 2. And again, it's going to vary. One town might get 3, 4 inches, another town might get 1 or 2 inches. It's such the mathematical equations that go into forecasting snowfall accumulation, very little error, again, can have big ramifications. Snow falling in southwest Illinois. Awesome to hear, Drew. Watch your videos quite often and like your forecasting. First time catching you live, Baltimore, Maryland. Well, thanks for watching, Ryan. I appreciate that, and always love the kind words. By the way, I'll stop here for a second as well before we continue forecasting. Just to say thank you. We've had some incredible growth over the past couple of weeks, which I guess brings me to my next point. If you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so. Also, go ahead and like the stream. That'll help more people see it and kind of help it work its way into the algorithm here as we kind of get on through this forecast. But again, we're knocking right on the doorstep of 14,000 subscribers. We were at 11,000 like a week ago. So, definitely exciting times ahead, and you can continue to bump those numbers up by subscribing if you haven't already. So consider that. All right, so again, what we're seeing on radar right now, this is kind of the rain snow line, if you will, working through Chicago. If anyone's watching in Chicago, I'd love to hear what's falling from the sky, but you'll notice snow beginning to fall from Minneapolis through northern Illinois here, and then kind of seeing rain showers still through Indiana and then through much of the Midwest. That's going to change, though, and here's why. If we take a look at kind of what is projected with the storm here, sorry, I'm reading something here. We will talk about the tri-state area of New York City, so don't worry. We will absolutely get there for sure, Alan. Okay, so just kind of giving a breakdown of the storm in general, kind of the meteorology behind it a little bit. It's all due to this big upper level low. And basically what's happening is we are getting a ton of spin in the atmosphere here. This is a big chunk of cold air, big pocket of cold air. And what's going to happen is all of this spin is slowly going to work south and east. And I want you to note a couple areas here. Kind of note that, well, let me make this a little bit larger. Maybe black will show up a little bit better on here. Let's see. Yeah, so notice kind of the little areas I circle here. These are all kind of what I would consider short waves in the atmosphere. So these are little enhanced areas of spin around this bigger spin. So again, these are going to kind of move counterclockwise around our low pressure. And some of these are going to get amplified a bit and help to produce snow. So kind of watch these little areas of brighter colors. These are Vort Maxes, as we call them, just areas of enhanced spin and generally enhanced lift. And notice that they kind of swing around this big parent low in the upper levels. And that's going to bring wave after wave after wave of more precipitation and generally more snowfall depending on where you're at. But there's going to really be two main lows, if you will. We're going to see one low, again, that's forming right now up into the Great Lakes. It's going to kind of swing around through the coming days, really through today, into tonight, and into tomorrow. And then likely tomorrow into the weekend, another low is going to form up into New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And that's what's going to bring heavy snow to you folks in Pennsylvania. Again, we could see some higher snowfall totals than maybe you would expect. But I'll mention here, as all of this continues to spin around itself and this cold air eventually kind of wears itself out a little bit due to air mass modification, just meaning the cold air works over warmer areas and kind of loses, its cold characteristics. It kind of averages out, if you will. But it's a tough forecast. So there's going to be little areas that are maybe a little bit stronger than we thought. Some areas might have a little bit more precipitation than we thought. So this very well could bring some surprises. Again, these are very complicated setups. This is not a simple mid-latitude cyclone with a very apparent area pressure falls ahead of it and you can kind of predict where it's going to go. This is all really in the upper levels. Not much is happening at the surface here. So again, that makes it very difficult to forecast. So I want to preface that here. So go easy on your meteorologist here. Go easy on your local guys and the National Weather Service. Again, it's a tough setup. But to give you the general idea here, here we go. This is overnight tonight into tomorrow morning, and we'll zoom in region by region after this. So again, stay tuned here. But here's that first kind of parent low. Here's the second one. These are the two I just mentioned. But you'll notice there's other areas of kind of enhanced lift and some snow happening in these little short waves in the upper levels that are swinging on through. But it's the first two that are going to bring the heavy snow, I think. And you'll see that here. This is tomorrow morning, heavy snow through Wisconsin. Again, southwest Michigan had a question there, even into the Chicago area. Look at this big band of snow. Then throughout the day tomorrow, working through Illinois, Indiana, getting into even portions of eastern Kentucky by tomorrow evening. And at that point, our next low kind of takes a hold. And we've then got heavy snow falling into the Catskills, up towards Scranton, through the Pennsylvania-New York state line here. And this process of just upper level piece of energy after upper level piece of energy swinging on through continues. And this just spins around itself through the weekend. And this is when, places like Connecticut, Western Massachusetts that may not think that they're going to get snow potentially could get it. And it's right into this time frame. You'll notice this is overnight Friday into early Saturday morning here. We do have areas of some snow attempting to fall in these regions. So again, there's going to be little surprises in this forecast that I think may catch a couple people off guard. But generally speaking, this should spin its way out of here by Sunday and then into early next week. Then all eyes will turn towards Thanksgiving and what could be an active pattern for that as well. All right, it says I'll be driving through Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio, Michigan, and then back down to North Carolina Friday. Should be fun. Yeah, definitely, probably gonna see some snow there on that trip. Um, Checking in from windy Omaha, Nebraska, home to the Air Force's Global Weather Forecasting Organization at nearby Air Force Base there. Yeah, it is windy in Omaha, and again, you're kind of under this low pressure system right now, at least that cold pocket of air. Man, that intense spin comes right over us in Baltimore. Yeah, in Baltimore, that's another area that I think flakes could fly. Now, you're probably not going to see any accumulations. If you're lucky, maybe the trees will get a quick dusting on them. And we could see kind of what you might hear referred to as white rain, meaning it is snowing, but it's almost like rain. It hits the ground and immediately melts. Again, some people I think that aren't expecting something like that very well could see it for sure. Do I make snowfall maps even just for fun? I do sometimes, but honestly, mainly whenever it's impacting the Carolinas, which is where I live and where I'm from. So, it takes a lot of time to make a snowfall map. So to do it for every single storm isn't really worth the time sometimes when I could just show you the models I'm going to make the forecast off of anyway. So good question there for sure. Seeing something about something being possible next week, like a northeast snowstorm. We'll see. It's a possibility, folks, and you're gonna want to stay tuned for that because it is something I'm watching, and we're gonna briefly touch on that at the end of this live stream. But before we do, let's go ahead and finish rounding out this storm. So we'll start in the Midwest here. Plenty of folks watching from here, so if you're watching in the Midwest, now is your time to really pay attention. If you're just using me as background noise, which I won't blame you if that's what you're doing. Also, again, I will remind you, if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so. Like the stream and consider sharing it with somebody that might enjoy it. All right, so again, going to start with the Midwest here and break this on down for you folks. So right now, again, we're seeing kind of what I would consider snow squalls working on through northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and then through Michigan. That will continue through overnight tonight and into early tomorrow. So you'll notice all that snow. At the same time, expect this evening snow to begin to break out into Michigan here, up into the northern mitten here, even into portions of the UP. That rain changing over to some heavy snow, probably wet snow, I should add. And then even some lake effect happening here into the western bit of Michigan here. Off of Lake Michigan itself. So we're going to see snow in here into these areas overnight tonight, but it's this storm that really cranks up, and by the time we're waking up tomorrow on Thursday, this is probably about 7 a.m. Central Time. Notice this low pressure getting stronger here, and as it's kind of moving over Lake Michigan, we've got a pretty big little band of some snow here. This is moderate to even heavy at times, working through the western bit of Wisconsin into northern Illinois during the morning hours. Also seeing some scattered snow showers into Indiana, Ohio here into the early morning hours of Thursday. And that continues throughout the day. But here comes that band of snow. And this is when the snow accumulation is really going to happen through western Indiana, even central Indiana, into eastern Illinois. This is when that 1 to 3 inches of snow could fall. Isolated spots a little higher, isolated spots a little lower. But I'll mention, it's going to be a sharp cutoff. Check this. I mean, it's not like these snow showers down in Kentucky are seen at the same time. This is, again, a very fine line where you could be 5 miles one way and see nothing and be 5 miles the other way and pick up an inch of snow. It's just kind of, the way that these setups work. But that swings on through, and you'll notice also on the northern side, this is rain. It starts as snow, then changes to rain in the afternoon in Wisconsin. That's because you lose that upper level cold air. So it's starting as rain and then moving into kind of a relatively mild pocket of air, meaning 40 degrees. So not mild to us, but mild compared to freezing. Compared to down here, where you've got cold air at the top, and then it kind of slowly filters down into that mild air that eventually can help kind of cool it through the sublimation process and all sorts of other meteorological terms and all sorts of fun things. So, all right, thank you, Michael. I appreciate the donation there. It means a lot. Let me read your question here. With the upper air pattern already completely different from last year and an active southern branch, I'm very hopeful for snow here in our area. I'm up north of you on Lake Norman. Yeah, Michael, Lake Norman, beautiful area. So you're lucky to live there for sure. And I'm hopeful too. And I'll tell you, I told a friend of mine, and by the way, what I'm about to say is not meteorological at all. So do not run off and tell the masses Gerald said the Charlotte area is going to see a white Christmas. But I was telling a friend of mine, I said, the Carolinas do weather so weird that the year that we get Helene, it feels like it would be the same year we get some kind of crazy winter storm during December or something like that. Now, is that going to happen? I have no idea. Nobody has any idea. We can't forecast that far away. But I will say the pattern looks pretty favorable here, really now through the foreseeable future. As again, like you mentioned, Michael, that active southern branch of the jet stream really ramps up, and we've got cold air lingering from Canada here. So again, I'm hopeful as well, Michael. And again, thank you for that donation. Appreciate it. Gerald, it seems like the worst impact is the latest and overused buzzword from or looks like the word impact is the latest and overused buzzword from our local meteorologists. Keep up the great work. Well, Brian, I can't really hate because I use that word all the time. So, but I do understand that the public can get tired of hearing the same words over and over again, for sure. So good point there, Brian. Friday afternoon, snow still falling between Ohio and West Virginia. We'll get to Friday afternoon in a second. We're on Thursday right now, so kind of hang in there. Can you look at the runs for the mountains in Northern California over the next 72 hours, please? I can touch on that, Kurt. Remind me, and I will come back to you in a moment. Alrighty, so back here again, Thursday afternoon, snow into Illinois and Indiana, at least portions of those states, and then that continues to move southbound in Kentucky. Kentucky's a sneaky place that could pick up some pretty good snow here. You start as kind of these snow squalls working on through. That continues through Thursday afternoon. And then you get a band of some moderate snow here during the evening hours as the sun is setting. And I think some folks in eastern Kentucky, 1 to 3 inches of snow, isolated spots maybe crossing 3 inches is something to watch for. So definitely exciting times for you folks down there. And then we get this overnight Thursday into Friday. Check this out. We've got, and by the way, I love talking meteorology, folks. I don't love just showing you the weather. I love talking about it. We've got what we call a pretty large fetch here, which I learned this semester in synoptic meteorology. Easily my favorite class so far. Here through Lake Michigan. And that's why we're seeing some lake effect pop up here on the HUR Friday morning. And what I mean by fetch is that's the distance the wind travels over a body of water. So again, that's why oftentimes we get these huge lake effect storms right here into the Gary, Indiana area. Now at this point, it's probably going to be rain Friday morning as you lose, again, as we've been talking about, that upper level cold air pocket. So again, kind of some fun lake effect there Friday. But overall, the snow kind of calms down through the Midwest by Friday afternoon. Hey, Pettis, great to see you. Thanks for the donation. My quality is top notch. I appreciate that. This actually isn't that expensive of a microphone. I bought it a couple of years ago. It was like $80, so I get that is expensive. But some people have these like $500,000 microphones, and that was not in my college budget. So, but thank you so much, James. I appreciate that. All right, let's talk about snowfall totals out here. Again, probably something you want to hear about. This is the latest blend of models. So these are all the models the National Weather Service uses kind of thrown together. And you'll notice, again, 1 to 3 inches. That's going to be the big theme here, I think, through western... again, directions are hard. By the way, again, another tangent here. I'm sure many of you watch Ryan Hall, and Ryan Hall now has a new AI robot that kind of tells you the weather, which good on him. That's cool. But I posted on Twitter, I was like, so you can watch Ryan Hall, he has this new AI robot, or you can watch GMWeather, who can offer a college kid just trying to remember which direction is north, south, east, and west. And I stand by that because I will say the wrong direction all the time. I don't know if maybe my mouth moves before my brain does, but either way, It is what it is. So here through eastern Wisconsin, yes, eastern, along the eastern shores here, could see again 1 to 3 inches. That includes the Chicago metro, and then down into Indiana here. And then down into Kentucky. And we'll talk about Kentucky a little bit more here, but this region I have circled on your map, that's where we're going to see that 1 to 3 inches. Isolated spots could hit 3 to 5. I think especially here into northern Indiana and extreme southwestern Michigan, where we're going to have some lake-enhanced precipitation. So not lake effect, but lake-enhanced, meaning it was going to be there no matter what, but the lake helps it out some into that region. So watching out for that. And then again, that whole area, 1 to 3 inches of snow between now and into your Friday. All right, let's get to the fun part. Not that that wasn't fun, but the Northeast. Let me know if you're watching from the Northeast. Let me know what part of the Northeast you're watching from here. And kind of chime in as we get into this region now. And I'm also going to take a quick second to take a sip of my drink and let y'all kind of comment for a second here. All right. Yeah, so let's get to it. Again, if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so. I will remind you throughout the stream if you're just now joining us. Like the stream, go ahead and again, comment, let me know where you're watching from, everybody. And we will get as many people in here as we can. And again, if you do subscribe now, you might be lucky number 14,000. We are very close to that mark here. So again, consider doing that for sure. All right, let's go ahead and start talking about the Northeast. So right now, again, you folks here are probably wondering, what is this kid talking about? What snow? Well, again, you're still in the kind of warm side of the storm system, and it'll stay that way through this evening as this kind of squall line works on through. Very gusty winds through Pennsylvania. In fact, had a tornado or two near Pittsburgh not long ago, maybe an hour or two ago. This line of storms will continue to work on through, getting into the Delmarva overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning. New Jersey seeing some gusty winds, some heavy rain out of this. And then we're probably going to clear out a little bit here behind it. Now, this is tomorrow morning. These are those kind of snow squalls I mentioned through southern Ohio, southern Indiana, into the mountains of West Virginia and Pennsylvania. That's when we'll see that cold air usher in. The winds will pick up. Winds will really pick up tonight, in all honesty, even before then. Again, kind of some active weather now, a little bit of a lull, but then this is when things go downhill. Here we go, Thursday afternoon. Our new low pressure begins to develop right off the shore of New Jersey along this baroclinic zone. And that's just an area of kind of a sharp temperature boundary that can promote cyclogenesis or low pressure formation, just to kind of give you the lingo there. Yeah, it begins to form, and what's happening is, again, it's funneling in all of this upper level cold air, and we're beginning to see this heavy precipitation work in. And again, this is hard Thursday afternoon, heavy snow into the mountains of West Virginia, into the bluegrass hills of Kentucky there, Louisville, back down towards Pikeville, Harlan, Kentucky, seeing these snow squalls throughout the day. And then that change over to snow into the mountains of Pennsylvania, just outside of Pittsburgh, the mountains of northern PA, up and around Scranton, through the Catskills, probably seeing maybe a start as rain, but then change to snow eventually here through Thursday evening. And check this out. This is a pretty strong low pressure, folks. 988 millibars. That's not something to just kind of scoff at here. It's going to be windy, and it's going to be what I like to say puking snow, one of my favorite terms that I think many of you get a kick out of. And I feel like I'm not the only one who says that. Anytime I say it, somebody in the comments says I'm crazy, but I've definitely heard other people say puking snow. I don't know, maybe I made that up. But again, Thursday evening, just about 24 hours from now, puking snow here through the Catskills into northern PA. And this is going to be a very heavy, wet snow. This is not going to be a dry, fluffy snow. Again, it's going to be heavy. It's going to be wet. So it will accumulate, especially on the grass, maybe not as much the roads. Now, higher elevations, probably going to see accumulations on roadways. But in these valleys, where it's kind of, again, more of that white rain that we've been talking about, it'll be a little bit tough to get those accumulations. But this is, again, 8 p.m. tomorrow Eastern time. Heavy snow falling even into northern New Jersey here. It's not out of the question, you folks in the extreme northern tip there. You could see some snow falling here, but the heaviest of it, again, right here along the PA New York border here, from Scranton up through Binghamton, through the Finger Lakes, the Catskills, and in and around that area. Same time tomorrow, like we mentioned, here's that little other low pressure. And again, just again in the meteorology here, here's one low, here's another low, and obviously you have all the precipitation associated with both. Beautiful presentation here from the surface. Again, always love it when things line up. But again, this continues into the overnight, into the evening. We see all of that snow continuing to fall through the overnight Thursday, and this is when it's going to begin to accumulate. Check this out. Continues to fall, and it's at this point waking up Friday morning. State College, Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, dare I even say Philadelphia, could see some flakes flying around the D.C. area, Baltimore. Now, again, in more of these major cities outside of the higher terrains, this probably isn't going to stick. If you're lucky, the trees will see some accumulation, maybe the grassy surfaces if it snows heavily enough. But again, don't be surprised in Philadelphia, Harrisburg, State College, down here into Baltimore, D.C., Friday morning into the early afternoon. Maybe some wet flakes fly as the storm continues. But really the peak of it for you folks into Pennsylvania, New York, is going to be overnight tomorrow into the early morning hours. Elsewhere, just some good old-fashioned rain here through Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, up into the interior portions of New England. Now, the higher terrain's probably going to be snow, maybe even a rain-snow mix, depending on where you're at. Definitely, for some of you folks, it's going to be a pretty wintry scene. Now, all this continues, and we still have this big mess of a storm, but it's at this point Friday afternoon, we begin to lose some of that upper-level cold air, and I think anyone outside of the mountains probably going to be back to some rain, maybe some white rain, again, just snow that's not sticking here Friday afternoon. Now, I want to show you a couple models. That was the high-resolution rapid refresh. I'll show you the NAM, for the same time frame. I'll go ahead and skip ahead to the fun part. Here we go. Tomorrow afternoon, you'll notice here comes that storm developing, quick changeover. Now, the NAM normally does pretty good with profiles in the atmosphere, so I would kind of pay attention to where you see snow, where you see rain. Now, it's probably overdoing how much snow and rain is falling, but kind of the rain-snow line, if you will. Normally, the NAM does pretty good with that, so pay attention to that. On this map here, this is tomorrow afternoon. Again, starting probably in the higher elevation. So if you're up in the Catskills, if you're up in the higher terrains of PA and then around Scranton, it's going to start as rain, then change to snow. And then eventually that rain-snow line is going to work its way on down the mountain. Same thing I witnessed growing up in the upstate of South Carolina. It would start snowing in the mountains, then it would snow in Table Rock, then it would snow in Travelers Rest and Pickens, then it would snow in Easley, then it would snow in Anderson. If you're from that area, you'll know what I mean. Again, it starts at the top and kind of works its way down as we get that dynamic cooling, as we call it. But again, I think by late tomorrow night, many of us seeing snowfall here into northern Pennsylvania, southern New York. We get that dynamical cooling, and boy, oh boy, what a cool process that is here for media. For all the meteorology nerds out there, it's always fun to think about. But again, continuing here into the overnight, heavy snow into northern Pennsylvania, heavy mountain snow into West Virginia, North Carolina, the Cumberland Plateau, maybe seeing some snow, even East Tennessee, the Tri-Cities, Johnson City, Jefferson City, maybe some flakes fly overnight. Go check your floodlight. It's that time of the year, isn't it? And then this thing continues to spin away. And again, Friday morning, maybe even to the afternoon, can we hang on to some of this snow and see some flakes fly in Philadelphia, Baltimore, D.C.? It's possible for sure. Although, again, I think the NAM's probably overdoing precipitation a little bit. But throughout the day Friday, again, we lose some of that upper level support, and then a new low pressure forms out and around Massachusetts. And it's at this point that maybe we see some snow here into Western Mass. Maybe Connecticut sees some flakes fly, and then probably seeing snow begin to accumulate into the higher terrains of Vermont and New Hampshire. So an active scene out here. All right, I will show you the southeast as well, and then we'll look at these snowfall totals, and then I'll take all your questions, and then we'll talk about maybe some Thanksgiving snow as well. But here we go. So tomorrow afternoon, snow squalls working through the mountains of Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, through the foothills there, and then eventually overnight tomorrow, I think that snow gets down to the North Carolina mountains through Boone, back down through Yancey County, even maybe northern Buncombe County, especially along these northwestern facing slopes. Again, good old-fashioned northwest flow snow. Could accumulate in spots for sure. And we'll probably continue even into Friday, I imagine. We'll see probably another piece of energy, maybe even Friday night swing on through into that area. Now, if you're outside of there into the foothills and the Piedmont of the Carolinas and Virginia, you're just going to be dealing with the cold air and the windy conditions. Maybe you get a couple flurries that make it over the mountain. Can't rule that out. Maybe even a quick snow shower up into central Virginia or a rain shower. But other than that, this is really going to be an elevation-dependent event. And we'll have to wait our turn probably for later on down the road. All right, here's the fun part: snowfall totals. I'm sure many of you are excited for this. And again, I'll mention this. I'll say it again. Some people are going to see more than this map shows. Some people are going to see less than this map shows. And also, this map, it only goes down to such a tiny resolution, so elevation will be very important as well. But this is the blend of models, and then we're going to take a look at probability forecasting through ensembles, which is just as important here when forecasting winter weather. So I'm going to take a quick second, read some comments, and then we will go from there, and I'll start talking about snowfall totals. Southern New Hampshire, we need the snow up here. Yeah, I know. Ski season is basically here now, and I know it's a huge part of your tourism for sure. I kind of got robbed a little bit last winter, so hopefully we can make up for it. Watching from Buffalo, appreciate it, Gracie. It's going to be a chilly weekend. Yeah, probably literally and figuratively, if you know what I mean. I would definitely be making some chili and eating it if I was up there. Well, Massachusetts finally gets snow. I think Western Mass could definitely out of this. And then stay tuned, Thanksgiving week. Again, there's a storm system that maybe could bring some snow to some new places. South Jersey, just east of Philly, hoping for some snow. I think you could see flakes fly. Accumulation, probably not so much, but you could definitely see some white rain again, as we've been calling it. You're awesome, dude. How many inches in the higher elevations? Depends higher elevations of where, James. So if you want to circle back and let me know what state you're talking about, I can help you out there. If you're not saying puking snow, you're not a hardcore snow lover. I use it all the time when streaming. Yeah, love it, right? I don't know why you wouldn't. It's kind of a fun term. Yeah, I wish it would snow over Charlotte as well. So you're not alone. Trust me. Well, it's snow in Kentucky. Yeah, James, definitely eastern Kentucky. Western, not so much. Louisville down towards kind of the hilly terrain, I would say. What's my favorite weather model? It depends on what you're forecasting. I definitely wouldn't say I have a favorite. I think it's dangerous to have a favorite. You can kind of get a little bit of a bias doing that. So, good question though. I should grow out my mustache. I've had a lot of comments about the little bit of facial hair that I do have over the past week. In fact, I walked into my professor's office today and he said, "Are we doing No Shave November?" It looks like. I said, "Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing." So I don't know why I've got so many comments about that, but good day to cut a pumpkin pie and Dutch apple pie. I tell you, I love apple pie, so I agree with you. Hey, Danny, it is not Thanksgiving break for me yet. That is next week, but it's going well. Yeah, thanks for asking. Well seasoned. Where was that comment? I lost it. Let's see here. Oh, I lost it. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Well seasoned meteorologists do not use the term puking snow. No one making good money says it. A term for snow jocks only. I like that, but you know what? I'm gonna bring it to the business. How about that? We'll change the business one step at a time. And you put me in front of a green screen, I'll talk about puking snow. Watch me. Hey, Andrew, great to see you. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate that. It means a lot. Way better than the news network. GM is one of my favorites. Y'all, I hear that a lot. That YouTube is better than the news and all. But give your local meteorologists the credit they deserve because there are plenty of people that when push comes to shove, and there's a tornado on the ground somewhere nearby, or a severe weather event, the guy you want to go to or the girl you want to go to is the one there in your local market that has been there for a while. They're very important. And I do think there is something to be said about changing the business and maybe moving it in this direction. For sure, I think you have to adapt. But yeah, I will say that. I live near the I-95 corridor here in Maryland, and when we get big storms, we always have to deal with the rain snow line. LOL. Of course, I'm on the southeast side of the corridor. Yeah, here in the Carolinas, it's the I-85 corridor. So it's funny how these highways are kind of built in areas that it feels like the weather just mirrors sometimes. But yeah, that's a good point. I live in Charlotte. That's where I go to school, James. Go to UNC Charlotte. Yeah, I'll probably come home for Thanksgiving for a day or so, Danny. It's kind of funny. I think the older you get, holidays like Thanksgiving begin to mean a little bit more to you. My freshman year of college, I was home every other weekend. It felt like now it's like every couple of months I go home. So, yeah, I'll definitely go home and see some family and some friends and eat some food and all that good stuff. I'm looking forward to it. All right, let's go and talk about these snowfall totals now in the Northeast. And again, this is the blend of models, but you'll notice a couple hot spots, we'll say. Again, northern Pennsylvania here into southern New York, specifically the Catskills and these mountains of northeastern Pennsylvania in and around Scranton. I think these highest elevations, half a foot to a foot of snow is definitely on the table. The lower elevations, 3 to 5, and then you get a little bit lower, 1 to 3, and then you get low enough and dusting to an inch. Again, it's really going to depend on your exact elevation. You're going to want to look at the advisory you're under, and it will tell you what elevation is expecting what. So, I would definitely look into that and check into that. All right, heavy snow also down into the mountains of West Virginia. I'll tell you, a couple days ago, it looked like West Virginia was going to be the real winner out of this, and this hasn't changed on the models, but I think we've seen some other places get a little bit higher in the totals here. Again, Pennsylvania, New York State specifically, but West Virginia, you're going to be getting snow squalls and northwest flow. I would argue maybe near blizzard conditions on some of those highest peaks. That wind is going to be blowing for a while. That with that snow squally type weather, we could see blizzard criteria conditions, even if we don't. I was going to say, sorry, I started reading a comment, so I can't read a comment and talk at the same time. Even if they don't issue a blizzard warning, you can see those conditions. All right, Jason says, what are your plans after you get your degree? Well, Jason, we'll see. I'm going to kind of go where the wind takes me, I think. I've definitely want to do this side of meteorology, the communication side of things. But we'll kind of just see where the path goes. I've got a couple things lined up, hopefully, in kind of the near term, a little closer to the near term, that will help me kind of figure that out. So, good question. Yeah, Kurt, before I forget about you, total around the SLC Wyoming border. Yeah, everyone, let's take a second and go do this for Kurt, because I told him I was going to, and then I didn't. So if you're watching from the Northeast and I'll be right back to that. But let's, SLC, I'm not sure what part of Wyoming that is, to be honest with you, bud. Maybe I can look that up. Is that like near Yellowstone, or probably is? We'll just show the whole state of Wyoming. Actually, I can zoom in local, Wyoming, blend of models. Look at this. See how easy this is, everybody? Right behind the scenes, you get to see it. Winter weather, total snowfall. All right, so this is now through the weekend. This is how many hours out? I guess it doesn't tell me because I'm on a local. So this is now through next Tuesday. So you got the key at the bottom. Again, out here near Jackson, obviously the highest peaks, a foot, 2 feet plus of snow. Other places, lower amounts. So hopefully that does you good. All right, I'm gonna go back to the other map now, Kurt. So again, you can pause the stream there. That's a spoiler alert. Okay, so again, heavy snow up into northeastern Pennsylvania. Again, the highest peaks, half a foot, is probably going to be what we see, and then slowly getting less as you go down. But I'll mention here, northern New Jersey. I mean, look at the blend of models here. This is 3-5 inches of snow. That's probably overdone, but I wouldn't be surprised to see 1 to 3 inches accumulate here in the extreme northern part of the state on the grass. For sure, especially those elevated surfaces. Probably not as much on the roads, but you get enough cooling, you get that temperature right around 32 or below. It could if it snows hard enough. Also, the higher peaks of New Hampshire up here. Again, Vermont, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, this is going to be extremely elevation dependent. So you're really going to have to be high up there to see it accumulate. But if you are lucky enough to be up there, could be a pretty good storm through the weekend and into early next week. A little bit more delayed for you folks, not so much tomorrow, more so probably Saturday, Sunday, Monday, up into that region. All right, let's bring this down a little bit. Take a look at the mid-Atlantic, and you can still see Pennsylvania and all on this map as well. So yeah, we talked about some of these areas. North Carolina, highest peaks up here, half a foot of snow is going to be possible. It's the same story as Pennsylvania, though. You get further and further down, it's going to drop off pretty quickly. In fact, the only place that I would say isn't as elevation dependent with this event is going to be right into here through Kentucky, Indiana, southern Ohio, and even into the Cumberland Plateau. Now, obviously, that's elevation in itself, the Cumberland Plateau is, but it's going to be less of a sharp cutoff probably. But obviously, you live on top of the hill compared to somebody that lives in a more of a valley area. That still will make a difference. But higher terrain is definitely going to pick up on some pretty good snowfall out of this one for a lot of folks. So, all right, that is the snowfall forecast. Let me go ahead and read a lot of these comments and try to answer them for you, and then we will talk about some Thanksgiving snow potential and go from there. So let me. All right, we've got a question about New Linux. I think that's in Illinois. So give me 1 second to look up where in Illinois that is, and I will be happy to answer your question. And now is another time I'll remind you, if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead, like the video, subscribe, hit the bell for the latest notifications, and so on and so forth. So I will excuse me, if I don't tie up on my tongue here, I will also add, rather, if this is your first time viewing the channel and you're on the live, I do daily videos as well, which, drop every morning. So, okay, New Lenox, that's just south of Chicago. That, maybe an inch of snow, I would say, is maybe a pretty safe bet, especially on the grass. Maybe not so much the concrete and the roadways, but the grass for sure. Danny's going to start Calc 1 next semester. Well, I'm in Calc 2 right now, Danny, and I'll tell you, looking back on it, I don't know why I thought Calc 1 was difficult, so enjoy it while it lasts, for sure. Chesapeake Bay water temperature in Maryland always plays a role in our storms. Yeah, it sure does. Ocean temperatures are very important, and can kind of move that rain snow line inland a little bit as that low level jet kind of cranks up. What was the most snow I've ever had? Actually, probably my senior year of high school back home. We got about 8 inches of snow out of that storm, which was in January. That was the year that we had snow after snow after snow in the Carolinas. And the first one was the big one for where I lived. We got like 8 inches of snow. That was probably the most I've ever seen. I live in Northeast Pennsylvania. The NWS says we're going to get slammed with 12 to 14 inches. Yeah, if you're on the highest peaks, I believe it. If you're on, 2,000, maybe 3,000 feet up, I definitely could see that happening. Salt Lake City equals SLC. Okay, gotcha. That makes more sense. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I can go back to Salt Lake City in a second here. Jason says, awesome. I saw you on another local weather podcast, but I forgot the name. Lol. It was super interesting to hear about you. You have a great future ahead. You have that broadcaster voice for sure. Yeah, that was the Are You Serious podcast, which, by the way, if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. You can just search up Are You Serious and then maybe my name and it'll probably pop up. Or if you subscribe to the channel and then go to the homepage, it pops up as your recommended video. I have it set up that way. But yeah, go check those out. That's hosted by some meteorologists in Myrtle Beach at WMBF News. And they've done a lot of great things for me, so go check them out for sure. They also do a daily weather show now, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I think Weather on the Go is what it's called, if I'm not mistaken. So check that out as well. They do great stuff. And I think they're a great example of what the TV industry should be and the direction it should go, at least in my opinion. Again, what do I know? I'm just a 20, almost, maybe soon to be 21-year-old. I'm still in that age where I get to say, 20 and 3/4, right? Or something like that. But, that's my opinion, though. So, yeah, definitely go check them out. Most you've seen is 28 inches in Indiana. Yeah, that's incredible. I honestly can't imagine. So, yeah, that's good stuff. Okay, so we took a look at all the snow. Let me go back to Salt Lake City real quick. I did not forget about you. It's always also fun to learn these little acronyms. So SLC, Salt Lake City. That makes sense. I will have to remember that. Salt Lake City. So if we go all the way out of time, this is now through 10 days. It's one of those areas that is very elevation dependent, obviously, as we've been talking. So, it'd be nice to have a storm that's not elevation dependent. It'd be a lot easier to explain and forecast. But yeah, mountains just outside of SLC through the next 10 days. I mean, a ton of snow, feet of snow. So great for ski weather out there for sure. All right, so this is the final thing I want to show you for this storm, and then we'll briefly touch on Thanksgiving and the pattern ahead, and then I'll answer any last questions and let everyone go and enjoy the rest of their night. And then obviously I'll be back tomorrow morning with that video. But This is a chance of a certain amount of snowfall from this storm. This is the chance of at least an inch of snow falling from the storm. So let me actually, what I'll do, just so you can kind of read the percentages a little bit easier here. Let's see. There you go. So you can kind of see the percentages on the right hand side of your screen there. Um, and you'll get a look for it. So again, this is the chance of at least an inch of snow falling. You'll notice kind of where the hot spots are. Even North Carolina, the higher terrains here, all the way up into West Virginia. Near certainty, same story for Pennsylvania. Now let's bump it up some. Let's go to the chance of at least 3 inches of snow falling. What does that look like? You'll notice we start to trim some areas down. So, this is why it's 1 to 3 inches is the forecast through Indiana and just south of Chicago there. Again, 3 inches is on the higher end of the possibilities. I don't mean that's a higher probability. I mean, it's on the higher echelon of the spread, I guess is the word to use there. But again, still a high chance of at least 3 inches of snow falling through the mountains of West Virginia, the higher terrains of Pennsylvania in here around Scranton. We've got high probability of at least 3 inches. But you'll notice here, this is when the elevation becomes pretty important. See how we have these splotches of higher colors? That again tells me that this is becoming elevation dependent, the chance of this amount of snow falling. And we'll bump this up even more. What's the chance that we see half a foot of snow, depending on where you're at? Let me hit the button here. And you'll notice we trim this down even more. If you're outside of the higher terrains, you're probably not going to see half a foot of snow out of this storm, is what this is telling me. But again, mountains of West Virginia, we're still, some places here still 100% chance of half a foot of snow falling from this. We get up into the higher terrains of Pennsylvania, Scranton. Again, the city itself, chances go down significantly of that happening. But you get into these higher ranges around the city and up here into the Catskills, half a foot of snow, still a pretty good probability. We'll bump this up all the way. What is the chance that you see a foot of snow from this storm? Let's do that. And you'll notice what happens is the map really gets trimmed down. So now we're down to the highest peaks, have the chance of seeing this amount of snow into West Virginia, where, probably going to run a 70% chance of that happening. Same story up here into the higher terrains of Northeast Pennsylvania and through the Catskills. But you get what I mean now. When I say elevation is important, the difference between an inch of snow and a foot of snow is the difference in your elevation. So, always something I think is a great tool, and ensembles I think is something people should use way more when showing the forecast for these things. Alrighty, let's talk about Thanksgiving some, because I'm seeing signs of some craziness is what I'll say. And again, if you're just now joining and just now joining, let me know where you're watching from. But we're gonna switch gears a little bit here, and then I'll go back and answer any questions, and then we'll end things off. But this is early next week, so let me actually back this up a little bit. This is the latest GFS run. This just ran. This is this weekend. Here's our big storm system in the Northeast, and then you'll notice we get to about Monday and Tuesday. The flow becomes zonal, as we call it, and what I mean by that is, again, you'll notice up here in the mid-levels, the wind is kind of just paralleling the country. It's not curving up and down. It's not wavy. It's just east and west. And what this tells me is things are going to calm down. We're not going to see as active of a storm track. We're not going to see these big Arctic outbreaks. But notice what happens as we go later into next week. Again, this is the Monday into Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We get into the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and we begin to see a trough develop out west. And if you watch my channel, you'll know what a trough means. A trough is trouble. Double T, trough is trouble. Remember that for the forecast, especially around the holidays when we've got a lot of people traveling. We've got a bit of a jet streak showing up here. We've got Arctic or polar air to the north of this. We've got humid Gulf air to the south. And we begin to see this divergence along the diverging side of this trough. And that very well could form a low pressure system out into this area. And that's what the GFS is predicting, where it's predicting a storm to form right along this trough and kind of work on through the country right around Thanksgiving, starting that Wednesday, going through Thanksgiving weekend. And I'll tell you, it's not the only model. Take a look at the European, same story. Early next week, we become zonal, things calm down, but right around Monday or Tuesday. So I guess actually there's a bit of a difference between the models here now that I look at it. You kind of get a 1-2 punch. This is, I guess, the fun part about analyzing this with y'all. So yeah, I will mention this. We actually do have a little bit of a storm system here showing up around Tuesday, so do note that. It's not going to be completely calm next week. That could maybe bring some snow or some rain to portions of the Midwest and Northeast early in the week. But then comes the big kahuna. Again, the Euro's a little bit stronger with that first storm, so we'll need to watch that. But then here comes the big trough next Wednesday, next Thursday through Thanksgiving, and you get a big storm to develop off of that. This will be bringing winter weather and severe weather on the European model. This is Thanksgiving Day itself. This is Thanksgiving afternoon. Big storm right in the heart of the country, showing up here on our 500 millibar height wind map. So something to note there for sure. All right, so I'll show you these models at the surface, and we'll start with the GFS. This is this weekend, again, relatively calm. Here's that first little storm that I guess glossed right over. I completely forgot about. So again, not very strong though, nothing like what we're seeing now. Maybe some showers swing on through, maybe a little bit of a cold front associated with it, maybe some snow depending on where you're at. That works on through, but then here comes the big one. This is next Wednesday afternoon. This is the day right before Thanksgiving. We've got a ton of rain developing and snow developing. Again, we've got kind of this polar boundary, and what I mean by that is we have very cold polar air to the north, and we have more warm, humid, mild Gulf air to the south. These two begin to interact with each other, and yeah, you're going to get quite the storm system here with heavy rain and heavy snow, and look what happens. This is Thanksgiving afternoon, folks. So again, basically 8 days from right now, on the latest GFS just ran, and we've got snow breaking out into the Ohio Valley, into the Northeast, into major population areas, New York City, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, back through Pennsylvania. Now, is this what's going to happen? I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but it's something to watch. And the models, again, have been getting on this idea of this happening. Again, it brings an impactful storm right in time for Thanksgiving. And then that will kind of swing on through, and then we could see an Arctic or polar kind of push of air behind it. The European model, a little bit different. Again, early next week, a little bit stronger with that first storm, so induces a little bit more lift, brings a little bit more cold air advection, so a bit of a stronger front, and maybe some lake effect snow on the backside of that early next week. Then here comes the big one. Now the European, a little bit stronger and begins to dig this trough a little bit sooner, so we get a storm to develop sooner. It's stronger than the GFS at onset. And because of that, we've got what would be a severe weather threat and a winter weather threat with the European. You begin to see what we call a negatively tilted trough. This tells me strong advection is occurring, a lot of lift. You'd see, again, heavy snow, maybe blizzard conditions with something like this. Now, again, this is not a forecast. This is just a model we're analyzing here. And then a very big time severe weather threat through Dixie Alley as well, right on Thanksgiving afternoon. And then that also, just like the GFS, takes a similar path and brings heavy snow into the Northeast, really a nor'easter here with heavy mountain snow on the backside through the Alps from North Carolina through the Virginias, and then heavy snow outside of the higher terrains through portions of the I-95 corridor by next week, and then that swings on through. So it's an interesting look. It's something we'll watch for, and I'll tell you, if we look at the probabilities of snowfall getting into next week here, again, it's the same thing I just showed you, but a different look. And again, I'll move this back so you can actually see the probability meter here on the side. This is the beginning of next week. Again, maybe some snow in the northern tier, but as we get through the middle of next week and towards kind of the end here, you'll notice snowfall chances picking up into portions of the plains, and then even into portions of the Northeast here. So it's something worth watching. Right now, the models are, again, kind of all over the place a little bit, nothing set into stone, but it's something that we will definitely want to monitor and kind of keep track of here as we go into the medium and long range. So what you're seeing right now, obviously important, but that's not the end of it, folks. Very active pattern on down the stretch. All right, so let me go back. Let me read all these questions. Let me do all that, and let me kind of switch it to radar here while I do that, and we can go from there. How much snow will humus, maybe is how you say that, PA, get? Well, let me find out where humus is, and then I will answer that question for you. EUMMAUS. All right, so that's not far from Allentown. Yeah, we can go back to this one. This is probably going to be a good one for that. Let me kind of zoom in. So humus is right around here. There we go. Perfect. It's on the map. And let me bring this down. So the chances of you seeing, we'll say, let's start this at 2 inches. What's the chance you see 2 inches of snow in humus? Not great. So again, probably some elevation stuff happening to the south of town. Looks like we have some higher elevation. So if you live down here, maybe a little bit higher chance, but I do think you'll see flakes fly in humus. Maybe it'll accumulate on the grassy surfaces. But again, it depends. If you live in these higher terrains around the city, higher chance. Like for example, Allentown here, only a 9% chance you see 2 inches of snow accumulate. You go to the mountains to the north though, and it becomes a near certainty here in and around kind of the mountain range here between Scranton and Allentown. that you see higher inches or higher snow totals. In fact, I'll tell you, it's almost looking at this map, you can see the elevation. Look at the valleys here. See these little blue areas in here? These are all the valleys, and then these are all kind of the hilly and mountainous ranges of the Northeast. So, it's one of those storms. It's one of those early season storms, unfortunately, that elevation is going to make or break it. If the temp is 33 to 36, will the snow be wet? Yeah, absolutely it will. That'll be kind of that white rain I was talking about. Where it's snowing, is it sticking? Maybe not so much. Total shifted in Western Pennsylvania a little bit, into Western PA. Again, high chances that the Poconos and all out here see a lot of snow. Elsewhere, maybe not so much. How much snow do I think Erie, PA will get between now and November 30th? So now through the end of the month. Well, again, it's an active storm track. Out of this one, maybe not so much snow. Again, unfortunately, you're kind of getting the opposite of lake effect, where kind of some of the warmer waters up here are going to limit snowfall totals into Cleveland, Erie, and kind of these coastal areas up through Buffalo. So kind of a backward. Again, this whole thing is backwards. It's one of those backward storms that are just so interesting to look at. But later on in the month, again, active storm track remains, so it could be a very active into the month into Erie for sure. I can't give you an exact total, but stay tuned. Hello from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Thanks for tuning in, Anthony. Thank you for interacting with your viewers. It's hard to find, or that's hard to find, Gerald. We appreciate that a lot. It makes it more interesting as well. Yeah, I appreciate it, Jason. Well, the whole point of the channel is to help people at the end of the day, and you're not helping them much if you're not talking to them and answering questions. So, I'll try to always do that. Even, I know sometimes I'm not super active in the comments, but I try to read them all and answer the ones that I think are answerable. Sometimes maybe not so answerable, but yeah. All right, folks. Well, I think we're probably going to end it here. I think those are all the questions. Again, come back tomorrow morning for tomorrow morning's video. We've had a very productive stretch on the channel. So again, if you haven't already subscribed, do so. Like the video, like the live stream, comment, all the things, that you would normally do for a video. So, all right, folks, I appreciate it. And I'm going to kind of end it out here. And I'll give this a couple seconds to loop, and then we will end the stream. So thanks, y'all. And I'll see you all tomorrow morning.